Still no quarterback decision. Plenty to talk about at LettermenRow.com. It's the practice report. It's going to be the same, more of the same. As more things change, the more they stay the same. That's the 40-year vet Tim May. That's Andy Backstrom. I'm Spencer Holbrook. That was Ryan Day in there. No, he did not name a starting quarterback. He did, though, change his tune a lot.
Well, you got to change the song a little bit. You can't sing the same song every time.
But he changed his tune on the idea of playing two quarterbacks at Indiana. But then at the end,
what did he?
Hold on, Tim. Then at the end, Tim, I'm going to throw it to you. He said, if it's even, the first snap will probably go to the veteran in a quarterback battle.
No, he didn't say that definitively.
He said
if he was talking about, if one guy has a higher upside than the other guy, but they're both even right now, he was asked, should you go with the guy with a perceived higher upside? And he goes, well, really, you probably would go with the guy who's been in your program. I'm paraphrasing here. You go with the guy who's been in your program longer because maybe he gets it at least for that first snap. And he gave no definitive answer today about who his starting quarterback is going to be, which bodes well, you would think, for Devin Brown based on the criteria you just threw out there. But this is not over yet. And he kind of threw out that horse racing analogy. Right now, I would equate it to Seabiscuit and War Admiral in the back stretch in their famous match race at Pimlico way back when. Which one is going to take off from here, or will one of them take off? Will it be a dead heat all the way to the finish line? That's what we're all wondering about. Obviously, one guy does some things better than the other guy, and vice versa. But in my opinion, there is no pressure on Ryan Day. There was no pressure on Ryan Day to name the starting quarterback by today or by tomorrow. I would play both of them if they're even. I'd play both of them the first 3 games and see what's up.
80 seconds in, we got Seabiscuit. Already brought up, Andy. It's a quarterback day. I guess it's a Seabiscuit day.
I got that picture on my wall at home.
What are your thoughts on the ongoing now quarterback saga that continues into 12 days until Ohio State? Still no quarterback.
Well, yeah, 12 days. So they still have some time. I mean, fans don't feel that way. Us as media, we want an answer to stop writing about the same narrative over and over again. But they do have some time, and he's trying to use that time. The other thing is, he's mentioned, it hasn't always been deadlocked that way. Like, there has been times where one guy has pulled away and started to create separation. And he's told the other guy, hey, this is what's going on. And then the other guy's caught up. And that's happened with both of them. He clarified at the end of the press conference. So Devin Brown and Kyle McCord have had moments in this competition where they started to pull away, and then the other caught back up. So it hasn't been like back and forth, by definition every single day, but holistically when he's looking at all the days, and that's what they have to do here, it still is neck and neck.
And based on what he said today, I'm looking at this as this is a whole new starting gate based on what he said.
Well,
the next 12 days are what matter to both of these quarterbacks.
I will be the first.
No days off.
I will be the first to tell you. In January, we stood in this building, and I said Kyle McCord would be the starting quarterback.
Yeah, you did.
In the spring, we stood in this building, and I said Kyle McCord would be the starting quarterback. Last week, I shot down a lot of things about Devin Brown because I said Kyle McCord would be the starting quarterback. I am now coming around, and I admit when I'm wrong, to the idea that this is as even as Ryan Day is saying it is. I've been thinking that a lot of this has been gamesmanship. Hearing him ad nauseum today talk about the evenness of this battle, I think it's even. And if anyone tells you right now that there is a leader, they are wrong. So I think it is, I truly think it is even now. And like you said, Tim, it now becomes a
match race.
I would say 6-day. You have to know because of first team reps, because of a new center, because of just signals, hand signals, even as something as stupid as the clap to snap the ball, you have to know who your starter is.
But boy, you hope both of them are doing those about the same way.
Yeah, but you have to know who's going to take those first snaps. And technically, whoever takes the first snap will be the starter. You have to know that by, I would say, Monday of game week.
It's
so
like a baseball game. You got to send a pitcher out there to start the game, no matter what the situation is. You've got to have a starter on against Indiana. Let's say send them both out there like Woody Hayes did in 1978, and he sends Art Schleicher to quarterback and Rod Gerald to wide receiver. Kept everybody, quote, guessing right up until the last moment. Yeah, this has some precedent in Ohio State history. The other thing is maybe telling both of these guys, hey, look, we're going to go with A as a starting quarterback, like you said, for that first series, that first quarter, that first half against Indiana. But B, you're going to play too. because they have not faced in camp in spring. They have not faced live competition, meaning they're live, meaning they're going to take hits. They're going to be having to judge things on the fly, so to speak. And I think it behooves him. He feels like he's got two quarterbacks that can win. Both of them, he feels, are in that realm. Are they even? No, because one always does something better than the other in any kind of matchup kind of situation. But I think he feels really, from what I got from him, he and his coaching staff feel really confident about both of these guys being capable of leading this offense, and we know what that means.
A couple things. One, he said they took a straw poll, right? Of all the staff, he said it was almost split down the middle.
It wasn't, though.
It wasn't, though. But he didn't tell us which way, of course, it was leaning. But
Boy, y'all are parsing.
Almost down the middle. And he was really saying he just wanted to get to know where his staff was thinking. He didn't want to be the only one focusing on this decision. Of course, he's got Todd Fitch in there. Of course, he's got Corey Dennis, Brian Hartline, a whole host of people, plus the defensive staff. He wanted to know how they're seeing it, too. Another thing he mentioned is, if he were to just have one of these guys, would he feel comfortable going into game one? He said yes.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was that he was asked, could there still be separation in these final 12 days? He said 1,000%.
Of course.
So there's still a lot of things on the table here. And he also said that if it does bleed into the season and both have to play, he might find out pretty quickly his answer. It's a lot harder to differentiate right now in scrimmages, in limited contact, once the games start. And neither of these guys have much game experience. Devin Brown has never attempted a college pass.
He has not.
Kyle McCord has only played in one really meaningful game in the sense that he started only once. And so once you actually start playing the games, you might find it out pretty quickly.
Yeah. And I know this is a vulgarity to say this name, but Jim Harbaugh last year at Michigan, I wrote a story about that for our website, lettermenrow.com. He let it go into the season. Hey, you're going to play a game, you're going to play a game. We're going to see what's going on here. You're going to play a certain amount, you're going to play a certain amount. We're going to see what's going on here. Turns out the upstart, J.J. McCarthy, beats out the returning starter who had led the team to his first victory over Ohio State since 2011 and took them to the college football playoff and the Big Ten championship, beats out Cade McNamara, who's now at Iowa. Everybody understands the gravity of this situation. And I don't think there's anything wrong with letting it go into a season, personally, if they're that close, if there's not that definitive thing that tells you this guy's better than this guy. And the straw poll is interesting because we all know Ryan Day is going to make the decision on who his starting quarterback is.
I think it was more just to see if he was seeing the field the same way that all the other coaches were.
Yeah.
I don't think Perry Eliano.
But he got back mixed results.
I don't think Perry Eliano or Tim Walton, who they think should start, or Larry Johnson, who he thinks should start. I don't think those guys are going to end up being the deciding factor. That's not at all, and I don't want anybody to think, and I'm just clearing the air here, that is not the point of the straw poll. But when you have a quarterback competition and you are a quarterback guru, and I consider Ryan Day to be one, you need to get the opinions of everyone to see, okay, am I seeing the exact same thing you are? And why are we seeing this so evenly? Is it because they're even, or is it because I have my preconceived notions, or I have my, biases because I've been around, maybe because you've been around Kyle more than a year longer, or you saw this from Devin in the film. Like, you have to get those.
What's interesting
those mixed
about
opinions.
this straw poll, as he revealed it was mixed results.
Yeah.
It wasn't definitive, one guy over the other, which is interesting to me, because, like you said, that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And I think that was very telling.
I understand. And Andy, I'll get your opinion on this. I understand, Tim, the notion of Jim Harbaugh did this last year.
No, that's just an example.
I know, but
I'm not saying that's the template.
Yeah, I don't think that these are similar situations.
Okay, Austin Mockerman, Steve Bellisari, 1999. Ohio State.
Allow me to say this. They wanted to start J.J. McCarthy all along. They needed for Cade McNamara to give them a reason to start J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah.
And McNamara did not
That's
look
they're
good.
They're not all even. They're not all the same. One guy was a returning starter.
He did not look good in game one.
Yeah.
And then they let J.J. McCarthy start in game two, knowing he was going to play well against an awful team.
Yeah.
And then it was, okay, J.J. start in week 3. That's not what this is at all. These two are both duking it out. They don't have a preference on who starts. I truly don't think they do. They just want the guy who's going to help
I
Ohio
agree.
State win a national championship. Last year, I think Michigan had a preference, but they needed everyone else to see it to justify benching the guy who took you to the frickin' playoff.
Yeah, and would I've handled it
So-
like Michigan did? They bring Cade McNamara to the Big Ten media days, and he's up there. One guy, Harbaugh, is saying, this competition's still open, and Cade McNamara is telling everybody, no, I'm the starter.
Yeah.
It was not a good way to handle that situation in the sense of publicly. Privately, they should have let it play out, and they finally did. They let it play out, in real games. I just think there's nothing wrong with letting it play out in real games, especially if it's just even.
Yeah, and it's not the worst thing in the world that this is where Ohio State's at right now. I mean, there's other
No.
positions that we were more concerned about and maybe still are more concerned about. There's safety positions that aren't settled yet. There are offensive line positions that seem more settled, and we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Please bring it up. Go ahead.
But the quarterback position is arguably not the most critical in terms of who actually starts because it's a
That's what
good
we've said all
situation.
along, yeah.
So it's fans I know want to know the answer, but it's not the worst thing in the world that or 1A and 1AB or whatever you want to call it are both options that Ryan Day feels comfortable winning with. But yeah, I'll pivot to the offensive line so we can get into that. It seems like Josh Simmons has been named the starter. He was basically, in all intents and purposes, named the starter today at left tackle. And the rest of the leaders of the offensive line were also listed out. Spencer, you want to get into that?
Yeah, it's from right now, the way I see it in my notebook and what will be on lettermenrow.com at some point today is Josh Simmons at left tackle, Donovan Jackson at left guard. I know I'm breaking some news there with Donovan Jackson.
Yep.
Carson Hinsman at center. I don't think that Victor Cutler has done enough to take that over. I think Hinsman has remained strong. Matthew Jones, another groundbreaker there at right guard, and then Josh Fryer at right tackle. The thing that I found interesting and I ended up asking Ryan Day about, and I got some good insight, is the developmental position of Bison to get those guys on the field early in their career. It appears to be heading toward a Luke Montgomery conversation rather than another guy, maybe a George Fitzpatrick or a Austin Saraveld or, pick your young guy who they could get experience. I think that's going to be Luke Montgomery, which means he is probably the future at one of the tackle spots. I don't think he's the present at one of the tackle spots, but I think this offensive line is far more settled than quarterback, and I think that's what's weird is we thought it might be the opposite.
Yeah, and then what's funny is really coming out of that press conference, just, parsing words, Josh Simmons and Carson Hinsman seem pretty set at left tackle and center based on the way Ryan Day presented it, but he said Luke Montgomery's going to play, basically. And at right tackle, I mean, they made that flip. So to me, that's the interesting thing. Josh Fryer and or Luke Montgomery at right tackle. Luke Montgomery, a freshman, but he's been here since January. We all know what that means in that Bison position. If you probably wearing number 41, you would think we might see that, we might not. Who knows? Enoch Vimahe is basically a solid guy for them in the middle of that offense, where they want to put him in as a backup. And Vic Cutler, Vic Cutler was learning the position, so to speak, when he came in the winter, and he's still trailing Carson Hinsman, best we can tell. And we haven't heard about anybody else at center the last couple of weeks. So that is a two-horse race with one horse, I think, pretty well ahead. You agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that offensive line. I was asking the guys about it when we got to talk to them the other day. How do you like the feel of that? Because I think that offensive line on paper looks pretty damn good.
Well,
you got a guy that started 13 games last year for San Diego State at left tackle. No one else on that line has in that tackle room has that kind of resume, And you got Josh Fryer, who acquitted himself quite well in a couple of really tough situations last year, starting and playing the whole game against his home state Indiana, for one, and I think he played pretty much against Michigan, right? Mm-hmm. Of course, that's not a game anybody writes home about. But
Donovan Edwards does.
Yeah. But that's another story. That's another story for 3.5 months from now. Bottom line is I think they like where that offensive line is right now, and that was my biggest question by far as you brought it up going into this camp. It wasn't going to be who the quarterback was going to be between two 5-star candidates. It was going to be who the right tackle was going to be.
That was the Ohio State Offensive Hour on this practice report presented by Byers Auto.
We condensed it to 20 minutes, didn't we?
The best place to buy a new or used auto in Central Ohio. Go to Byers Auto. Go to byersauto.com, find your vehicle. Now on to the defense, because, oh, by the way, Jim Knowles spoke too. And Jim Knowles laid out a depth chart for us, kind of plainly almost. He brought up Mike Hall and Ty Hamilton as those defensive tackles. You know, those guys are really solid. He brought up JT and Jack as his two, you know, big-time defensive ends, but you put Kenyatta Jackson in there. He brought up
Caden Curry. He had Caden Curry in there too.
I'm just going the starters. You go the corners, and he named the starting cornerbacks, and then he went into the safety room, and that's where it just all blew up. I don't know.
Well, he named one starting. Was it him or Ryan? Named one starter for sure at safety, one of the safety spots.
Jim Knowles did. He said that Sonny Styles is definitely going to play. He said he's definitely earned a starting position in that back end. And they said they like him in the 11 personnel, against 11 personnel, against 12 personnel, against any personnel, basically. Any personnel. And so Sonny Styles is going to play. He's going to start. And then the other position is Lathan Ransom, pretty much definitively starting.
He's going to start.
Now, the interesting thing about that is he talked about Lathan Ransom, the high safety spot, which we always felt like he would do well there. But they've been practicing with him, and he started last season at the bandit spot. So now it seems like he's switched to the high safety spot. So that brings the question of who's at bandit, because he was saying that Sonny Styles is probably going to be at the nickel, Sam, strike, whatever he wants to call it. So then at bandit, it looks like it's either be Josh Proctor, Jahad Carter, or then the true freshman Malik Hartford, who has gained, 30 pounds since coming here and shed his black stripe and been on the rise.
Buy stock now, Andy.
I wonder if he got his. See, I thought what I was taking from that was Lathan was going to be that bandit dude, and that the adjuster is going to be one of those three.
He said that.
I know. I'm just I'm confused by the nomenclature, only because the other three seem to fit more of that spot. Lathan seems to fit the bandit spot. Anyway, I found that. If in fact I'm playing it over in my head right now, and I'm getting a lot of sounds from Mars also. But I just the bottom line is I think he feels pretty damn good about the personnel on hand for those three spots.
Yes.
And there's no doubt he and Ryan Day both like what Sonny Styles brings. Sonny Styles is one of the things that's going to make this defense different from last year.
Yeah, and Andy, Sonny Styles, I don't know if you've heard this before. Stop me if you've heard this before. They call him a unicorn. That helps to have him. Jim Knowles made some 4-3 comments today when I think he was trying to make 4-2-5 comments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Sonny Styles, safety or linebacker?
He said he feels like more like an outside linebacker at this point. I mean, like the mold. He compared him to Jeremy Cash from Duke that he coached as well. And
who was at Ohio State?
Yeah. We've also heard him compared to Isaiah Simmons, who's played linebacker at the NFL level. And he was linebacker at Clemson. He's also played safety, corner, everything. So I think the point is you can play Sonny Styles wherever you need him to play. He seems like he's thrilled to do that. And, you know, there's other questions, though, with this defense, because another one of those pieces is C.J. Hicks. And the more and more we talk to this defensive staff and these defensive players, it seems like the jack is less and less mentioned.
We might start shoveling dirt soon.
And they again said today that Mitchell Melton is progressing as a traditional defensive end. So it really feels like the jack position.
But he named Melton and
he did.
And Melton and
he did.
Hicks is the. I mean, we're getting mixed messages, fellas.
Right.
I think we're going to see so much more of a conventional kind of looking, and even Jim Knowles alluded to this about what he has changed in his approach. He hadn't given away any secrets and stuff, but we've talked about this many times on these shows. The more talent you got, and they do have some talent. I mean, we're not gushing. They do have some talent. The less you got to do quirky stuff, tricky stuff, because sometimes you trick yourself, which is, I think, what happened last year in the last couple of games. They got tricked themselves.
Even against Maryland.
Last 3 games, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree. And that's what you're seeing, an evolution of a defense and a defensive coordinator right before your eyes. And nobody says that you came in here with a 4-2-5 with the jack position, or what was it called, the Leo, and you got to stick with that. I think the first several games are going to be very interesting to watch what Jim Knowles throws out there.
I mean, you've had defensive coordinators come in here before, most notably one in Southern California who still doesn't get the job done, who had a bullet, and then we never saw the bullet. And
it was like Barney Fife's bullet.
Yeah. This is on the Lettermen Lounge message board. This is stuff you can only get at lettermenrow.com if you subscribe. Subscribe now. Great deals, and we're all hanging out there. This is stuff you can only get there. These are the guys that I charted from Jim Knowles' press conference today, who he mentioned as, this guy's going to play a lot, or he's really coming on. but I don't have in the starting lineup right now. You ready for this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Caden Curry, Mitchell Melton, C.J. Hicks, Malik Hartford, Cody Simon, Kenyatta Jackson, and Hero Canoe. Guys, I don't know how it's going to work, but that's 7 right there, on top of the 11 we basically know are going to be the starters. That's 18 there, and you're really only looking at, you only really want to play between 16 to 20 when you're talking about rotations and defensive line, and that's not even mentioning Davis and Igbinosun, who I think is going to play a lot. All of that is to say, all of that is to say, I think this is a very deep unit. And the expectations for this defense, I said it on 97.1 The Fan this morning. Thanks to the Morning Juice for having me on.
Yeah, Beamer.
The expectations for this defense, I might be even higher than most people are. You should be very high on this defense because they are setting that standard for themselves, Andy, to be extremely high. And I don't even know if meeting it's going to be possible, but they're going to make a run at it.
Yeah, and we had defensive line week last week, and I don't know if we even did it justice with not mentioning Kenyatta Jackson as much as we probably should have. He is mentioned, and you asked a question about this, he's mentioned in the same breath as Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau. It is a big 3. No, and it started in the spring, Jim Knowles said. He saw it in the spring, saw it again this summer, and that is the 3. So I feel like from now on we should just mention the 3 of them together until we see something different. And then Caden Curry was also mentioned today as someone who's going to play, who played
a lot, he says.
Play a lot. And
yeah,
we saw him play last year, and then it kind of tailed off a little bit, but now he's in a different year, second year as a sophomore, gained some weight in a different body. And all 4 of those guys seem like they're going to play a defensive end.
And when you say that, okay, when you name those 4, I don't see one prototype. I see 4 different dudes. I mean, yeah, 4 different guys. You know, how stupid is that, Tim? I'm talking about, I see 4 different kinds of players in all, when you line those guys up, and I'm just going, that just when you rotate in, if you rotate the 2 in from the 2 that started, those are different kinds of pitches. Like tackles are going to have to be in tackles, and guards and maybe a running back having a chip or whatever, a block, are going to have to deal with. I mean, I think Jim Knowles has come to really true grips of what he's got at hand here, which is all these different ways you can mess with the offense's mind just by changing 2 guys or moving Sonny Styles from off the edge to into the middle. We saw Sonny Styles in some of the pass coverages roam in the intermediate middle of the field a few times, like a linebacker would and stuff. And with his range and his quickness, I mean, there are just so many things that are going to be available to Jim Knowles, I think, from a confidence standpoint, that it will work going into the season than there was this time a year ago.
Well, that goes back to the Rushman package, which we might continue to see with maybe even just those 4 guys.
Oh,
and the other thing too,
we've seen that before.
We've asked the question time and time again: can JT Tuimoloau replicate what he did at Penn State, or at least come close and be consistent with that? Maybe he doesn't have to, because maybe Kenyatta Jackson also has one of those game-wrecking games. Maybe Jack Sawyer, who Jim Knowles said has been dominant recently, can have 1 or 2 of those games. Maybe Caden Curry can have 1 of those games. And now you're looking at a schedule where you've got 4 or 5, maybe those different games, and you don't need one guy to have several of those. So it's a situation where, like, maybe that's how that works.
Nope. Yeah. Was it Ryan or Knowles, though? I think it was Ryan Day who said how much of a leap Jack Sawyer has made in the last several days.
It was Jim Knowles.
It was Jim Knowles. That was telling, man. That, you know, the season's right around the corner, and he's feeling so much more comfortable than he did this time a year ago. Not really. I don't think he played the jack, so to speak, but I'm not sure he really.
No, he's forced into the jack.
Fit that spot, you know what I mean? And when Mitchell Melton got hurt, he kind of threw everything up in the air, you know. And I don't know. There is a sense that there's a piece about this defense that's about to explode on somebody.
No quarterback decision. Ryan Day refusing to make that call. I don't think he has that call to make yet. No kicker decision. We'll make that little note at the end here. A lot of decisions made on defense, though, fellas, and a lot of coverage on all of it. Coming to LettermenRow.com, the 40-year vet Tim May. He'll be there breaking it all down. Andy Baxter will be there breaking it down alongside me, Spencer Holbrook. We are all going to be there with Matt Parker on the recruiting side. The Lettermen Lounge message boards, the place to be. Subscribe to the YouTube channel underneath as you continue to get more of the practice reports as the season inches closer. These practice reports, of course, presented by the fine folks at Buyers Auto, the best place to buy a new used auto in Central Ohio. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to Tim, the 40-year vet, to Andy, to me, Spencer. We will see you back in this very building tomorrow night for another one of these. Until then, check LettermenRow.com for full coverage.